everyone. I'm so happy to have Marcello, the CIO of Horizon Fund, with us in our office today. Yes, so I want to have a little chit chat talk with Marcello about your fund. What is the uniqueness of your fund? Because there's so many funds in the market right now. So how do you stand out from everything?
Absolutely. Susana, thank you very much for having me, first of all. Thanks everybody for watching this. So our fund is quite different from the regular funds in the sense that it's an open-ended fund. 90% of the funds in Portugal, they are closed-end. This is an open-ended fund and is a fund that invests in crypto as well. So I think there's quite a few interesting things we can talk about on why this fund can be of interest for you.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about the investment strategy and what are the assets that the fund is invested in? Because
Absolutely.
I know it's quite interesting to
Yes.
some of my clients as well.
So the fund invests 65% of its assets in Portuguese corporate bonds. In Portugal, we have this index called the PSI 20, which is a large index of the companies that are too big to fail in Portugal. These companies, they issue corporate debt. And we buy this corporate debt that is 65% of the fund, anchoring the return of the fund. Then you have part of 35%, which is the crypto part, which is currently all in Bitcoin, to give a boost to the return of the fund. So no matter what happens, the returns of the fund are quite safe on this anchoring. And then Bitcoin, which has been giving 57% return on the last 7 years, gives a boost to the return. So these two parts combined should be generating between 15 to 17% a year to our investors, which is quite interesting.
Okay. Wow, great. How do you hold the Bitcoin or buy the Bitcoin? Because a lot of
Good
clients
question.
are
Yes.
really interested in this
So
part.
our fund, it can hold directly Bitcoin and Ethereum if you want, but we decided to do it through ETFs. Why? Because the ETFs, people are more familiar with ETFs. There are ETFs on S&P, ETFs on Nasdaq. There is a very large ETF called the BlackRock iShares ETF, which has as of this recording, has $70 billion of assets under management and $2 billion of daily liquidity. So this very liquid asset, together with these corporate bonds that are very liquid, allow us to provide our investors monthly subscriptions and redemptions to the fund.
So why 35% crypto and 65% like bonds? I know it has to do with the Golden Visa regulations, right?
Correct. So the funds nowadays, to be eligible for the Golden Visa, they need to hold at very least 60% of Portuguese assets, and these assets cannot be related directly or indirectly to real estate. So we have these two clauses in our prospectus that the fund needs always to belong at least 60% in Portuguese assets, being corporate bonds, and then up to 40% we can have in digital assets, but in our case we're doing 65-35, and that brings a good mix. Now the question, why 65-35, why not 70-30, why not 80-20? It's a good question. We did some simulations, and 65-35 not only is the one that gives the maximum Bitcoin exposure to investors, but also, and more importantly, gives a volatility to the fund that is lower to the S&P. Because a lot of our investors, their long-term savings are sitting on US equities. So if you say, okay, I will take a part of my long-term savings and put on a product that is less volatile and provides a 15 to 17% return, plus a passport, this is a very interesting proposition.
So what is your perspective on crypto in general, and why do you think this fund is interesting?
Right. So this is first of all, of course, I believe in crypto assets. It's a young asset class that has, started maybe 15 years ago. Bitcoin is becoming mainstream, and that's because of that, we believe that is the right asset for this fund. Although the fund can invest in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, we're focusing mostly on Bitcoin, and the fund will probably just hold Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin? Bitcoin is seen as the digital gold. There is a supply argument that there is a maximum 21 million that will ever be issued, and there is already 19.5 million of them out. Furthermore, the US, as we speak, in the next 3 to 6 months will pass legislation that will allow the banks to sell to retail investors, and there'll be like a flood of new interest into it. So there's just basically not enough Bitcoin for everybody. Furthermore, if you look a bit further out on the 3 to 5 years horizon, you have the following situation. Cath Wood from ARC Research is one of the most serious researchers in the US, and they have a technology fund, did a study for, by 2030, what would be the price of Bitcoin. So they did a study based on what is the demand for corporates, reserve managers, and all sorts of buyers of assets, asset managers, and you can see that online. And they estimated that it will be around 1.25, 1,250,000 price of Bitcoin, which is 12 times from here. If this come to pass, this means that this fund will have returned to investors approximately 4 times their money.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
And is there any special tax treatment for your fund in the investing assets?
Good question. Yeah. So in general, people that go for the Golden Visa funds, they don't move to Portugal unless they spend 183 days in Portugal. There's no tax implications for them. They remain only paying taxes on their home country. Now, the assets of the fund, which are bonds and Bitcoin, they do not incur any taxes, which means that this return 15-17% that I mentioned a bit earlier is already net of any potential taxes that you may have. So the proposition is a portfolio of bonds that is high credit rating, BB minus or above, maximum 10% per issuer, so highly diversified, that part. And then the Bitcoin has been giving 57% a year, and there are no taxes. So when you put this all together, you have a very interesting proposition for someone that is looking for a Portuguese passport.
Yeah, I think so, because some of our clients are looking for, especially they requested something that's like has a investment in crypto, because they're seeing a very high potential return.
What I would add, so investors, they should look at the portfolio as a whole. And if you have a lot of exposures to equities, and you have now Trump with this tariff war that is bringing a lot of volatility to the market, think about this. This fund has 65% in bonds, which has zero correlation to the equity volatility, and then Bitcoin, which has 35% correlation to the S&P. So if you sum these parts, this portfolio is very low correlation to the equity volatility, which means that you're getting a new asset into your portfolio that has 15 to 17% return, and this asset has a low correlation with the rest of your portfolio, which is just good management of your money.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, a very good point. Thank you Marcello for coming in and explaining your funds to our clients and our viewer. I know you're going back to the UK this afternoon.
Yes, I'm between London and Lisbon, and I spend like half of my time here in Lisbon and half of time in London. Eventually I'll move permanently here. This country is great in terms of, as you know, of security and lifestyle, so I look forward to move here. Thank you very much for having me, and looking forward to help any of your clients that have questions. We're here to help. End of the day, it's important that you if you want a plan B, this is definitely a good opportunity, and we would like to help you any way we can.
Thank you, Marcello.
Thank you, Susana.
Thank you so much.